Let's Podcast. Alongside Joe Giglio, I'm Joe Ovias inside Eford Studios in downtown Raleigh. Big thanks to Copiers Plus. Check them out online at copiers-plus.com. We've moved from bracket season to mock draft season, Joe, and I'm going to be using my Kyocera to just be printing out draft analysis on every quarterback and telling you why this guy is going to be better than this guy. Welcome to mock draft season, Joe. No, I'm kidding. But if you want to do your own mock drafts, go ahead. I might need the Kyocera printer to fill out a bunch of medical forms.
I was going to say,
yeah,
Kyocera and Copiers Plus does not endorse drinking contraband beverages from the early teens of this century.
So
I don't have paddles here, sir.
So shouts to Amir, one of our listeners, who had promised us 4 Loko once we got to 7,000 subscribers on YouTube, which we surpassed this week. Really, all the credit is due to NC State's March run. I mean, numbers go up. When I've been saying this to people, oh, you're clearly rooting for State. Yes, I am rooting for State for one reason and one reason only. Because when State's good at something, business is booming. State fans engage. They love to engage. So yes, I do like State to win because it helps everybody. Business goes up thanks to NC State. So we get to 7,000 subscribers, and I've made a habit of, when we hit milestones, drinking something ridiculous. When we got to 6,000, you had a smorgasbord of like hot Cheeto and tacky drink.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that one? That one gave me a headache. There was the Sex on the Beach in a can.
Oh,
it was so terrible.
I'm still thinking of the Relentless. No, we had the
we
had the knockoff Relentless.
It was the anniversary wine. It was the 10-year Carolina Hurricanes anniversary wine that had gone bad. That had gone bad. So this is a grape 4 Loko.
OG 12%.
So this is a premium malt beverage with artificial flavors. Has I think I pronounced this correctly, guarana, taurine, caffeine, and a bunch of dyes. Really, really natural stuff. And it's 12% alcohol. This is an OG version for the OG. They changed the formula under pressure from government regulation when people were getting sick off this stuff back in 2009, 2010 timeframe.
Has Amir had it in a vault?
Yeah, I had 4. I remember when they took it off the market. I went to Avent Ferry. What was it? The 6 and 12. Isn't that what it was called?
Yes.
The 6 and 12. And
not to be confused with the 7 even.
No. I bought one of every flavor, and I kept it in the fridge in our house for the longest time. I remember I cracked one open for Thanksgiving because my brother really wanted to try one. Desperately wanted to try one. I'm pretty sure it went bad. So anyway, Joe, I'm going to pour out a little bit for you. I'm not going to... Ooh, my goodness. Does that show up on the camera? That is a blue... This is about the same color as the this is the same color as the Carolina 82 blue soda. It's the same color. Anyway, and for NC State, of course, since we're here because of the Wolfpack. What pill did you just take out?
Oh God.
Oh yeah, that's gone bad. That did not age well.
No,
come on, take a sip. What's in the container?
That's my blood pressure medication.
Oh God.
No.
Dude.
I'm not even going to make the joke I want to make.
Make the joke.
No. That, yes, no.
That
didn't hold up. It's not like a Twinkie.
No,
you're thinking
this is not Dogfish 120. That's been sitting in somebody's fridge for a long time. This tastes like
how you go back. I don't know. It's kind of smelled like Easter egg dye, but spiked Easter egg dye.
This is like this is Robitussin that's been sitting in your car for weeks in the summer. Okay,
but it's not hot.
Yeah, but then you've decided to chill it. But it tastes like Robitussin gone bad.
Okay.
So you
have Robitussin or NyQuil?
Robitussin.
Okay.
Robitussin. Now,
Because NyQuil's got a little sting to it now.
It does have a little sting, but we also know that there are some people who go for the tussin, if you catch my drift.
Sure.
I mean, a little purple drink, right?
Drink.
Now, here's the thing about this is what it tastes like to me. You know, when you have,
I could smell it from here.
I'm guilty of this. I know there are people who are cringing that I'm doing this, but what's worse, drinking this or going to the medicine cabinet? You have a cough. It's, you're having you're trying to have a productive cough, and you have cough medicine that's sitting in the medicine cabinet, and you don't know when you got it, and it has an expiration date from 10 years ago, but you still go for it because you're too lazy to go to the pharmacy to get yourself some new stuff.
And much like for Loko, old cough medicine was the real thing. Now you're getting the meth heads that ruined it for all of us. We can't get decent cough medicine.
Oh, that's right.
And cold medicine.
You have to
anymore.
get it behind the counter, right?
Now, even that's like the watered down version. It ain't the real thing. What are you doing?
I don't know, man. I keep going back for it. I don't know what's up. You know me.
And there's no kernel to chase it either.
Yeah, I know. I have
nothing to help you with.
You got
this,
4
sir.
roses over there.
I got the roses.
And we have Ken's.
There should be a shorty in there still too.
We do have Ken's bourbon mixtape that I have to get to. Well, the bourbon mixtape.
That's for the birthday.
That's for the birthday. We'll talk about that more a little bit in the housekeeping. Okay. So let's actually
7,000 is good.
Yeah, no, 7,000 is good.
So it's a good thing that we got to 7,000 for you. The color of that is just. Looking at the can, I thought it was going to be like a grape soda type deal.
It's like blue.
No.
No. So I'm drinking this. You're drinking your own tears.
I am. Yeah.
Before we
feeling it a little bit.
Yeah. Before we got started, you kind of I've known you long enough to know when you're in a little bit of a valley.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're a little bit in your feels, and that's fine. Feel your feelings, man. Feel your feelings. But I was like, "What's up? Like, what's going on?" And I think it finally happened to you. NC State's having this run. You used to be the beat writer at the News and Observer for NC State. You've done a lot of stories, a lot of great stories, and you still feel it's like you get on my ass about how the radio guy won't die.
Yeah,
the paper guy won't die.
No,
and it's starting to hit you. It's hitting you, Joe. I know we have one YouTube commenter that always talks about Joe, me. Hi, Ovia's here. Never has to pay for therapy because this is my therapy.
Yeah.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Dudes would rather start a podcast than go to therapy. Okay. Why do you think the podcast?
Nothing wrong with that.
Why do you think the podcast industry exists? Because a bunch of dudes like me would rather do this than go to therapy. So yes, this is our therapy. So sit down on the couch, Joe. What do you got going on, man?
No, this goes back to this. Well, first of all, we're trying to reclaim April 26th, right? So April 26th, we got unceremoniously fired.
Yeah.
About 2 minutes after our show, right? So April 26th is the day after my birthday. April 26th is
the day before
your
Kelly
anniversary.
Yeah.
Right. Also, the day my wife was officially cancer-free, April 26th. So there's good things there too. But you think about how do you process all of that? So it's a year-long thing. We started this thing. We've done well with this thing. 7,000. That's a good number.
Oh, well, I mean, the 7,000 on YouTube is great. It's a little bit of a vanity metric, but real. The number that matters more, but if we're going to be serious here for a second, the number that actually is the one that got me to go, oh, shit, okay, is for the downloads, specifically for the podcast. Not YouTube clips, not reels, none of the social media stuff, which can be somewhat fugazi. I'm talking about like actual, like hard number downloads for the podcast. We've surpassed 1 million. So we did that before a year came out. In 11 months, we did 1 million downloads for the podcast, which is pretty humbling.
Yeah, these are all good things.
All great things.
You know what I mean? But you're still processing it.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And part of processing and taking back our birthday and taking back April 26th and taking back our year is you have to let go what happened to you. Not to go full Goodwill Hunting, but you have to let go. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. Like there's market forces that are in play and that led to our exit.
Yeah.
But going back a half a step or a full step, I should say, I'm the one who willingly chose to leave the News and Observer. I left because I was ready to do something else.
Yeah.
Never in a million years could I have anticipated that something like this would happen for NC State, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there is a difference between what we do And I would much rather at this point be doing what we do. I'm not just saying that because it's what I'm doing, but the grind of availability, non-availability, the grind of doing all of the things that you have to do, would it have been worth this particular payoff? Yes, I think so. But the truth of the matter is that was a choice I made in 2020. Willingly was a choice I made.
Yeah.
Because I was ready to do something else with my life. And I have processed that part of it. But I'll tell you where it hit me. First of all, we'll talk to Brendan Marks. And I saw that he went over to Oakwood Cemetery, and I was like, there's a story there. And if I was still doing what I was doing, I would have gone to where the old Landover Arena was and written a story about the gas station or whatever it is now, because that's where NC State had won their last title in 87. But going and seeing Jimmy V's gravestone, those are the kind of things you think about. But I saw like a soft feature on DJ Horn and about his parents. They're local, and they have this RV. Mm-hmm. Your kid's at Illinois State. Like, yeah, you go get an RV. And I could see me and Ethan being in the RV and writing a story about the RV and the parents and the miles that they've seen and the carpeting in the RV and, what's your favorite drink in the RV and all of those things. These are all stories that, to your point, they're not my stories, but when you tell them and you're the first person to tell them and you're the one who tells them most completely, you become the authority of those stories. Mm-hmm. And clearly that's not what my role is anymore. So part of me, yes, does miss being that authority. Yes, I do. Part of me.
Something to think about, though. Because you and I have a similarity and we would experience this. You're the local authority. Local authority. Because what ends up happening is that you could sit there and you can grind and you can write these stories and they're sitting there. I'm not going to give away too much of the game, but I remember we had a conversation with somebody who was a consultant who, claimed to be an NC State fan, but they didn't know who you were, right? Like, what are you talking about? Because there's a group out there that likes NC State, follows NC State, but doesn't follow NC State, right? So what ends up happening is stories that have been told on the local level finally get picked up on the national level, and then you see their soft focus on it, and then all of a sudden people are sharing it, and oh my God, this is a great story, and then you go back and you go, well, I wrote about that last year.
Right.
Well, wait a minute.
Well, I don't understand.
I don't understand. But I literally did this story last year. Why is it suddenly getting this national attention? Well, because you find out real quick that there's levels to this. There's levels to fandom.
And again, this was CBS. Like, this wasn't right. This is like their pregame show and all that stuff.
Of course.
But listen,
because I experienced that with, look, you and I experienced that with Russell Wilson, right? On both levels, from how you wrote about NC State at that time versus where Adam Gold and I were doing shows and we talked to Russell Wilson, and then you see you get picked up and we're like, well, no,
that's not really what happened.
And that's why we did an entire freaking podcast series about it, right?
Yeah.
So this is something that we've experienced over time, but I'll give you this. And again, this comes from having done this on my side of the business, which is radio, audio, etc., right? A little bit more social media, those types of things. Where I am okay with those types of things going on is in the sense that somebody still needs to be a place where the community can get together, right? Mm-hmm. That everybody can kind of experience these things in a communal way. And as the landscape has changed, it's significantly, it's more and more difficult to find places where people can get together outside of even just going to a game, right? So let's take it back to Saturday night at the Rialto, right? Hayes did a good job of inviting people to the Rialto and people hanging out. And the reaction to what I thought was a horrendous show on Saturday night, because we were drunk. The audio sucked. Brinson was being Brinson, right? All that kind of stuff. But the amount of people who loved the unhinged nature of the show made me go, you know what? Get over the technical aspects of it all. People want to have the authenticity. People want to have the real reaction. People want to see all that stuff come together. And I think that's where I've where I've done this in the side of the business for the longest time has been more about that, a gathering place for people to talk about what happened. Because again, as I joked earlier, like people, dudes would rather start a podcast than start therapy. Look, man, sports is funny in that I can get 20 different. I'm using dudes in the context because dudes is gender neutral, right? So you just get a bunch of dudes, people who like sports, right? They can come from all sorts of different backgrounds. You get them at a party. You get 20 people in that party. And then you just go, hey, man, you see the game last night? And then suddenly it's like, oh, yeah. You see what this, and everybody has an opinion on it.
Yeah.
You might come from different backgrounds. You might have different political affiliations. You might have all this other crap, right? And I had this experienced all the time when I got stuck at like summer associate parties. When Kelly was going through the summer associate circuit, right? And I would show up as the happy husband to go, to be there, and all these. I got nothing in common with these people, man. These are all incredibly smart people who went to really top law schools, and they're operating at a level that I don't understand. But it didn't matter I'm making at that time, what am I making? I'm making like 50 grand at 850 the buzz, right? Not even, probably more like 40 grand at 850 the buzz. These people are billing, they bill more in an hour than I would make in a week. Okay. But you know what ended up kind of making everything work? Sport. Oh, you were at the game, you're this, you're that. So we're afforded this really cool opportunity to cover all these things in different ways, which is why it's funny. My brother's freaking out because he's like, I'm going to the Final Four. I have to be there. I have to be there for this. I know you're going to be going to the Final Four as well. Shout out to Philip for helping making all this stuff work. This is where the community comes together, right?
Yep.
A lot of people have stepped like, hey, how can we help you cover this?
Darwin Gym too.
Right. Yes. So there's a lot of folks who have come together to help us out to make this work. Again, that's the power of sports. It's funny. I've been to enough Final Fours.
That's where we're different. I've only been to 2.
That's the thing. My job has afforded me to, in the past, afforded me to go to Final Fours. I've been to Super Bowls. I've been to Final Fours. Dude, I've seen national championships. Okay. I've seen Duke win it twice.
Like I say about 2010, you watch that.
I watched that. I was there for that.
And you're like, no, shit, there's Ovius.
Yeah. You see me, you see Strelo, you see Schramm. Like we're all just sitting there, right?
Yeah.
Hell, the Final Four game. I know you and I, we did the seat, Game of Thrones, right? And Luke DeCock will always be in the Homeboy Hall of Fame because he texted me saying, hey, this guy from Kansas is not here. I think it was a Kansas paper. And he's like, nah, he's not here right now. And I was like, perfect. And I sat there and I got to witness Carolina Duke in the Final Four from an incredible seat, right? So for me, State going to the Final Four is a great story. It's a cool story, but I don't feel compelled to go. But now that you had an opportunity to go, I'm like, dude, go. Yeah. Let's make this work. Just go. I don't need to go there because that's the other thing too.
It's not even really me. My kids are the ones who want to go.
But here's the other thing too. And Kelly and I were talking about this. Part of me doesn't want to go because I haven't experienced something like that for NC State here. Yeah. Okay. I've experienced Carolina winning a national championship here in 2005. Right. I got pictures. Kelly and our best friend Kate, on Franklin Street having a grand old time in 2005 when Carolina won the national championship. I think we did something similar in 2009 to be on Franklin Street. I've experienced that for Carolina. You know what I have not experienced? State at that level here.
Well, nobody has.
I hear stories. I told the Tony Rigsby story, right? Our age. Like I tell the Tony Rigsby story. I talked to all the old radio heads about, back in the day in 1983 and how they covered it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the way they explain, oh yeah, Hillsborough Street was nuts. Like all this other stuff. I'm like, oh, that'd be cool to cover. That'd be cool to see. So part of me is actually okay with being back here for the Final Four because I've never experienced it from that perspective. I mean, if you think about it, you have 2006 for the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
But I think people recognize that in 2006, the Stanley Cup hit differently than if the Canes would win the Stanley Cup now.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So State doing this makes what's going on in downtown Raleigh a completely different thing. Anyway, we've gone all, rambling and whatnot. Maybe it's the Four Loko. I don't know what it is.
The smell is just horrendous.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's gone sour.
But thank you, Amir.
Thank you, Amir. Real one. You're a real one. You're an OG. OG for Four Loko.
Housekeeping.
Thanks to Vana for sponsoring Housekeeping. They're actually coming out to the house today at some point. The cool thing about Vana is that they'll text you. They're like, hey, we are on the way. So that way you can communicate with them. If you happen not to be at the house, you can work that out. If somebody's at the house, you can prepare yourself, all that kind of stuff. It's all in heads up and communication. That's the beauty of Enovana. And with Enovana, it's very straightforward. Just go to the website, enovana.com, and you can schedule a one-time cleaning. Let's say you've got people coming over. Let's say you have a party for the Final Four, and it's going to be a wreck. Hit up Enovana, schedule it ahead of time, right? And they'll help clean up that house. Or you can do the scheduled service. That's what I do every 2 weeks. Enovana comes out and makes sure the house is clean. So again, we appreciate them sponsoring Housekeeping. We mentioned birthday parties. What did you just pull up? Oh, is that the jingle?
Is it playing?
It's not playing.
Oh, boo.
It's not playing for some reason. I don't know why it's not playing.
Boo.
I'll figure it out. We'll
Okay.
do that. We'll do that tomorrow because I'll load it up into the audition.
Okay.
Speaking of birthday parties, you made reference to it. We'll go ahead and just start talking about it now. We don't have all the details yet. We just have a date. May 3rd. May 3rd. Why May 3rd? Well, May 3rd is when we started the podcast. So that's going to be a Friday, and we're going to be at Shady's in downtown Garner. And we are going to have a birthday bash. It's not going to be some big elaborate thing. It's just going to be a hang, straight up hang. We'll have some raffles, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to have some bourbon and raffle off. We have a Seth Jarvis, who's our April calendar guy with his puppy. Seth, can you see that there? Right there. And we have a Seth Jarvis mixtape, a signed mixtape. Remember, he made a summer playlist last year. We had him.
Yeah.
I made a mixtape. I had him sign
We
it.
have the clip of him being like, well, how do you
Where
even do where does this go?
How does this all work? So we have that. We'll have some other goodies
What
as
a
well.
youth.
Classic OG Scoreboard. We'll be doing some trivia.
Mhm.
I actually talked to OG Scoreboard yesterday in the event that the Canes might be playing a playoff game on a Friday night. We don't know yet.
Yeah, we don't. So
So-
we'll be a little bit later in that day, though, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because the Garner High School fundraiser golf tournament is at Eagle Ridge that same
is it?
day.
Is it? Oh, okay.
You know how I get.
I know how you get.
You know how I get.
I know how you get. Yeah, we're going to do it like at 7 and 8 o'clock at night.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
I will tell Matt that I'm in.
I think Breeze Through is going to have the food truck out there as
Yes.
well. We're going to have to talk to Adam about that. Speaking of Breeze Through, we got Michael Connell is going to be at Breeze Through.
Yeah, they're doing an NIL event tonight.
Yes.
Love
Yes. Money Mike in the house. So anyway, May 3rd, mark a calendar. We'll be putting out more social media about this in the near future. But May 3rd, we're going to be at Shady's and Garner for an OG birthday bash. Again, casual thing. Come on out. We'll be hanging out. We'll have some prizes. We'll have some raffles. It'll be a good time. Speaking of Breeze Through, we thank them for sponsoring Ovies and Giglio. You can check them out online at breezethrough.com. And again, they're going to have an NIL event at the PNC location. If you're catching this podcast earlier in the morning, if you're watching on YouTube with the premiere at 2 o'clock, it's over. So sorry about that. But if you want to have up-to-date stuff on this, follow us on social media. Follow Breeze Through on social media because they're doing cool stuff all
They're
the
giving
time.
away gas cards. Michael O'Connell and Jaden Taylor
Yes.
will be over there.
That'll be a lot of fun. And speaking of Shady's, big thanks to Whitaker and Hamer for sponsoring Ovies and Giglio. Check them out online at wh.lawyer. Again, that's wh.lawyer. I probably should have had them draw up a release for me drinking this Four Loko during the show, that nobody is liable for the ridiculousness of what I am consuming in the time of this recording. So we've got the women's Final Four that is set. And shout out to UConn. UConn's pulling an NC State where they have both teams in the Final Four. They got the men's and the women's side of things in the Final Four. Now, unlike NC State, I actually think that both UConn teams can pull it off. Both UConn teams can win the national championship in the same year. I like the women's side for NC State more so than the state side of things to win the national championship. But that's another conversation for later. Now, we got the payoff yesterday. The bracket is the bracket, and it's made for television, and they absolutely made it so that Iowa and LSU would meet for a trip to the Final Four on the line. And it delivered last night. I really don't know how else. I mean, there was a lot of buildup, a lot of discussion about LSU and Kim Mulkey and the Washington Post article that was fine. I don't know why she was so ridiculous about the whole thing. And of course, you have the positioning of Caitlin Clark, who is this singular entity in college basketball that is a must watch. Darren Ravel did Darren Ravel things after last night's game, showing you the prices of the Final Four before Iowa won and after Iowa won. There's a Caitlin Clark, Zion Williamson-like effect for ticket prices as people want to see this phenomenon. And It's interesting. There's a lot of reasons why women's college basketball is having this moment. And it took stars to finally get the NCAA to finally see the big picture about what they're missing with women's college basketball. And the storylines of women's college basketball that men used to enjoy, you see it unfolding, people coming back, rivalries, moments,
return
matches, right? And that's what we got last night.
Yeah.
We had the LSU, Iowa, Angel Reese pointing at the finger, Caitlin Clark walking off, the "you can't see me" all that stuff, and Caitlin Clark getting her revenge last night over LSU to get to the Final Four. It was compelling television. She delivered 41 points. 9 threes.
That's crazy.
And we even got a meme because I forgot who the player was that after she hit her 9th three, she just put her shoulders up like, what am I supposed to do? Now, there's a little bit of coaching there from Kim Mulkey. One of the best tweets that I saw last night is that Kim Mulkey spent way more time drawing up defense on the Washington Post than she did focusing on Caitlin Clark. I mean, come on. You know who you have to stop. And yet LSU had a hard time doing it.
Look, I think there's a little bit of I remember for a long time I blamed Mark Few at Gonzaga when they were in Raleigh for losing to Steph Curry and letting Steph Curry go off the way that he did.
Yeah.
At some point, you just have to acknowledge that when someone is going to drain threes on you, there's really not anything you can do about it.
And I'm glad you brought up Steph Curry because that really is the 1-for-1 in what Caitlin Clark's able to do.
But listen, Iowa was the #1 seed for a reason. I thought they were going to lose the game. I thought LSU was going to be the better team. She didn't let it happen. It was interesting. They talked to her at halftime and talked to Caitlin Clark at halftime, and she was talking like a coach. She knew the rebounding stats. She knew like everything that was going on. And I was like, okay. Meanwhile, Angel Reese was over there. She turned her ankle. She was not exactly into it. She was kind of screaming over at Kim Mulkey about getting her the damn ball and all this. I mean, they were just kind of coming apart at the seams. But it still took a superhuman effort from Caitlin Clark. And now we get the match that I've wanted, and I've been disappointed that we haven't had, because the one thing that women's basketball has always been great at, especially Gino Auriemma, has been scheduling big games out of their conference. So I was disappointed when we didn't get an Iowa-UConn matchup earlier in the year. Now we get it. We get Paige Beckers against Caitlin Clark. I mean, what else do you want?
They've met before, but obviously not in this setting.
Not when Beckers was healthy. She missed all of last year.
Yeah, and not these two players at this level. And of course, you have the built-in storyline with Caitlin Clark in that Gino Auriemma, I think the 12% is finally getting to me. The Gino Auriemma never actually showed up to recruit her.
Sure.
Right.
I mean,
so there's the whole like, that's when I took it personally.
And then on the other side, you have South Carolina with their own redemption arc, because last year, quite frankly, they should have been the national champions.
Yes,
they were eliminated by Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
And then now they play State.
Right.
And State has to look at this like, okay, you want to talk about Dawn Staley and South Carolina and how they've been the best team. You want to talk about Caitlin Clark and being this singular sensation. You want to talk about Paige Beckers, who, by the way, knocked State out 2 years ago now. So you have all of these other things. And now I think that's where our friends from Breaking Tea have it right. If you're Wes Moore, you're sitting here going, why not us? Why not both? Right.
Well, speaking of
because
which,
they've already had their success against South Carolina regular season. But NC State's not going to be intimidated by South Carolina in this game. If anything, they should be emboldened by what Indiana did to South Carolina in the previous round.
Our friends at Breaking Tea have put out the shirt. Why not both?
Why not both?
It's out there now. If you go to our Twitter account or my Twitter account, I put the link out there.
But think about all of that history, those four teams, and the connectivity that those four programs,
it's great,
in the women's Final Four have.
That's why there's juice.
And there is juice.
There's juice, man.
And second of all, they're really good players. Like Paige Beckers, she's an unbelievable shooter.
Here's the thing:
she's without a 2-point shooter.
That's yes. There's that. Also, you brought up the injury, and Beckers was somebody who was on that precipice because when they knocked out State, she was the draw.
She was a machine.
She was the draw in that game. She balled out in that game.
And they lost in the final to South Carolina.
Yeah, all these stories.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's all intertwined.
But that's not how college basketball arrived for the women.
No, not having this great history between and connections and moments.
No. I know you've hit the big time when I can tune into national sports shows, whether it's on the radio side of things or the television side of things, and we've entered into the takeification of women's college basketball. Does Caitlin Clark need to win a title to become one of the greatest of all time? That kind of stuff.
We got into the legacy conversation.
But the legacy conversation pales in comparison to the one thing in basketball that is the best. And I'll tell you the moment. It happened last night during the game that women's college basketball has. And I say this facetiously. Anybody who's taking me seriously about how, what do you mean women's college basketball hasn't arrived? No, it has. I'm just saying that you know it's hit a point when people who never talk about women's college basketball on the regular are parachuting in, having conversations about it, and they sound eerily familiar to the men's side of things. And you're wondering, Ovies, what the hell are you going on about? Has the taurine kicked in? Are you a little too hyper right now? You got those palpitations? No. I give you Bob Ryan from the Boston Globe. I applaud the greatness of Caitlin Clark, Paige Beckers, Angel Reese, and Juju Watkins. But in fairness to their predecessors, I don't see a better point guard than Don Staley or a better post player than Lisa Leslie. Great women's basketball skill is not new. Did we just go 90s NBA? Did Bob Ryan just go, you're good, but you're not what it was like back in the day? Tell me that isn't the sign that you've truly arrived, Joe. When the old heads take time out of their day to go, this is cool and all, but it ain't the 90s. It ain't the 80s. I love it.
I'm just mad he didn't go Cheryl Miller.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Shit.
Better than her brher for all those years, man.
No, that's a good point.
Think about it. Her brother was pretty good.
Yeah. That's a good point.
She was better.
I thought that was amusing on multiple levels. You make those baseball bets?
I did.
How'd you do?
Our nerfied.
Oh,
yeah.
All right.
It was a nerfie's dream yesterday. Are you kidding me?
All right.
A lot of good nerfies yesterday. All the best nerfies, if I could.
I have not. I did not partake in that.
In the nerfs?
I'm sticking to the rivers and lakes that I'm used to, which
That's
is college basketball and hockey. Because I know this Canes team, man. Like they follow a pattern, so I know ways to make that work for me on DraftKings. But you've dug deep. You've got what is it?
It's just a dart throw, man. I mean, it's
okay.
There's no.
All right.
You just take them all, basically. You just run them.
Fair enough.
But I am now going to my specialty for tonight because the NIT is back. I'm undefeated in the NIT. I would actually take both games, both favorites tonight, but I'm just going to give you one. That's Seton Hall -4.5 against Georgia. Mike White. We'll never know how close we were to seeing Mike White be NC State's basketball coach. We'll never know. But his Georgia team takes on Seton Hall. Listen, Seton Hall probably should have been in the NCAA tournament. Teams can go two ways. Those teams who don't get in can go two ways. They either lose in the opener or make a run through this thing. I think Seton Hall ends up winning the NIT. I think they win and cover tonight.
Big thanks to DraftKings for sponsoring Ovies and Gilio. They are live. You know they're live. We've been talking about this. They are the official sports betting partner of NASCAR. I have talked openly about my appreciation for the built-in parlays. 5 legs, 6 legs. Why not? I'll throw $5 down. And I tell you what, I've actually been pretty successful here as of late, picking the right built parlays for me at DraftKings. A lot of great features. They got the betting groups, and I'll say this: have been having a hell of a lot more fun with DraftKings than I ever would on a bracket. So yeah, you can get in on this as well. All you got to do is download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now using that promo code OG24. You bet $5 and you get $200 instantly in bonus bets only on the DraftKings Sportsbook with code OG24. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 877-718-5543 or visit morethanagame.nc.gov. 21 plus, North Carolina only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Deposit and eligibility restrictions apply. Terms at DraftKings.com/sportsbook/NC. NASCAR is not a sponsor of this promotion and used under license. Again, use that promo code OG24. Thanks to Hometown Realty for sponsoring the podcast. Check them out online, myhtr.com. It's one thing to have a little fun with, throwing $5 down on the DraftKings app. You don't want to play around with that money when it comes to your home, and Hometown Realty can help you out with that. Again, check them out, myhtr.com. We talk a lot about money on this program. Bang for your buck. You're going to get that at Butcher's Market. Check them out online, thebutchersmarkets.com. Maybe you have a big Final Four weekend plan on the NC State side of things. Friday night, Saturday night. You want to entertain. You want to have people over, have a good time. Butcher's Market makes it super, super easy. They got prepared meals. They got the little ham biscuits. They obviously have all the cuts of meat that you can want. They got prepared burgers, hot dogs, etc. It's all there for you at the Butcher's Market. Again, check them out, thebutchersmarkets.com. And may I suggest, especially if you go to the Lake Boone Shopping Plaza, you get the Butcher's Market stuff, and then you bring some pints of the Tuffy Tracks.
The tracks are still available, Joe. More than 200 gallons strong. Jared says the tracks will continue as long as the Wolfpack continues. He's got to cut up that cookie dough.
I love it, man. I love it. So check them out, Two Roosters.
Oh, I forgot to tell you.
Yeah.
I tried a different flavor.
Oh, you did? Good for you. I'm proud of you.
I went to the Lake Boone location.
Mm-hmm.
They had strawberry honey.
Ooh.
Buddy.
Okay, then.
You know how sometimes you tell me it's okay to venture out? It's okay to try new things? I was all locked in on the bourbon coffee, and then I saw it, and I was like, I'm sorry, strawberry and honey?
Excuse me?
I'm sorry.
Good stuff.
The deliciousness. Go try and find your favorite flavor at Two Roosters.
Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline from The Athletic, he is Brendan Marks. Tell me 2024 is wild, Brendan, without telling me it's wild. You've written more about NC State at The Athletic than like ever. You've been at The Athletic how many years now?
This is 5.
5 years. And it's not like you don't know what's going on with the Wolfpack. You know what's going on with the Wolfpack, but it takes like this singularity to bring the national attention to the Wolfpack. And I thought you did a really, really great job on The Athletic, highlighting how Raleigh, with both the men's and the women's team, is just filled with life and fun and all the things that you love about March Madness with these two squads.
Yeah, about the only place I couldn't go was DJ Horn's house. But the thing is, like, over the past 5 years, I don't know that I've written 5 total NC State basketball stories at The Athletic. And there have been times where I've popped in, the big wins over Duke, some of these moments, but obviously the run in the
I want to make something really, really clear. You want to, but the issue is that State, it struggles to break through. Well, this is certainly the way to do it. That's how you break through.
It does. I mean, I was in DC on Tuesday on the off chance that halftime deficit against Louisville continued for another 20 minutes and things really went sour. Mm-hmm. And obviously the complete opposite of that has happened. So it's just been remarkable to watch, honestly. I mean, like I don't know if you guys know this, but like when my family first moved to North Carolina, finally first moved to Raleigh, they understood the rivalry and the aspect of it so little. My dad went out and the first thing he bought a Duke shirt, he bought an NC State shirt, and he bought a UNC shirt. and I was like, Dad, I don't think that's how it works here. But so it's just really cool to see, NC State get this moment again. I think it's, long deserved. And for so many people I know, it's just cool to see them enjoying it.
Brendan, I think one of the strange parts about it, to me anyway, is NC State's like outplaying teams. It other than the O'Connell shot, like there just hasn't been that much that's been fluky about any of this. Where do you think some of this was during the regular season? Like, why do you think there was like a disconnect in let's say after the Clemson win down at Death Valley?
Yeah, I think for one thing, the format of this tournament helps NC State because I think that NC State has an incredibly unique team. Like they have so many different role players who all do very specific things. And given the personnel that Kevin Keatts has on the floor at any given time, it completely dictates how they are going to try and attack and defend. And I don't know that you can necessarily game plan for that in the span of 24 hours. And even in the ACC tournament, when they're doing this, you've seen some of these teams before. But you're right. None of this has been fluky outside of the O'Connell shot. And even that, I mean, I would argue wasn't fluky. I mean, he got it off in time. You get a little bit of a bank, but then in overtime, NC State rolled. So I think the fact that, first of all, we've seen the defense come around. The defense has been much, much better. You're seeing some incredible shot making from the guards. I mean, I think the second half of that Marquette game, some of the shots DJ Horn was making off the dribble, those just weren't dropping during the tournament. one of the things that I look back on now and I find hilarious is like talking to him after the Virginia win in DC and him saying, yeah, I've watched the Kemba Walker highlights. I've had a couple of coaches send me that stuff. Why can't I do the same thing? It's like, okay, DJ. And then it's like, okay, DJ. So it's just been really cool. But I do think the fact that NC State is so unique, all of their different players do different things. If you have Burns in, obviously it's one thing. If you have Middlebrooks, if you have Diarra, if you have Horn, if you have O'Connell obviously has lifted his level of play to a whole different level, has been much more consistent, especially as a 3-point shooter. But no, you're right. I mean, these have not been fluky wins at all. Like I told this story yesterday, but I was flying back from Los Angeles on Sunday. I watched the first half of the game, and then I got on my plane to come home to Raleigh. And NC State was down 6, and I didn't have Wi-Fi on the plane.
Mm-hmm.
And I landed, and NC State was in the Final Four. And I like had to go and look at the box score, and I'm like, they shot what in the second half?
Yeah, it's wild how quickly things have changed. Because in the athletic piece, you highlighted how Kevin Keatts is just getting mobbed by everybody, right? That was not the case a month ago. A month ago, we're talking about NC State. We're talking about Kevin Keatts in a completely different way. I mean, you can't separate the two. But I think it does highlight why it's March Madness, how fates change, how these things all kind of come, all get tied together. And there's a time to have a conversation about where NC State goes from here. But in the moment right now, I think it's interesting how it's just kind of bringing up all these memories, whether it's from old timers, or whether it's from younger fans who never got to experience it. They only get to hear the stories about it, and now they're actually having their moment. I mean, Gilio and I have talked about this a lot, and why we've been kind of doing the whole feels like 24, because it's its own unique thing that fans finally get to experience for themselves. Carolina's experienced it a bunch of times. Duke has experienced it a bunch of times. But there's an entire generation or two of State fans that have never gotten this. Now they have it.
Exactly. And, walking around campus yesterday, that was the funny thing. I tried to stick around and like peek my head into a couple of student tours if I could. Mm-hmm. And there was one in particular I thought was so funny. It was being led by somebody who was still in their senior robes. I guess they had just taken senior pictures, and then they were leading a tour. And one of the parents in the tour was saying, how cool this must be for you guys. I hope you were enjoying it as students. And the student said back, yeah, but like, did you go here? And the parent was like, yeah, I did. He's like, well, you've been waiting for this for 40 years now. So I think that part of it is really the coolest. Like, yes, it is, but more it's the fact that all of those people who were there for 74, there for 83 are now getting to see their kids and their grandkids have that same feeling. And like NC State fans, like for all of the stuff, and you guys called it, that the stuff is done.
It's done.
It's done, but for all the stuff they had to go through, that obviously makes it this much sweeter.
Which I think is why there's a callback to 83 in a lot of different ways. And I know you had highlighted this on social media that Jim Valvano is buried in the same cemetery as your father. And you went to go visit, and you saw that clearly people have been going back to Valvano, and they had left things there too. That, again, that's another dynamic that I don't think, unless you've lived here or you've been around here long enough, that you don't understand those dynamics and why people would feel compelled to go and do that.
Yeah. And the thing that I find interesting is every time I said this in my tweet yesterday, every time I go to see my dad, on the way out, I swing by Valvano's head zone just because I think it's cool, obviously. And sometimes I'll, walk down. Lorenzo Charles is right there too. And there's usually some stuff there. Usually there's for a long time, there was a basketball there that had Never Give Up sort of like etched into the side of it. Usually there's some flowers, maybe there's a candle or something, never to this extent. And it's different because I've been over to Dean Smith's grave in Chapel Hill too. It doesn't quite get the same treatment. It's definitely more of like and it's just as accessible, maybe more accessible because it's right there on UNC's campus. But the fact that people keep going back, and Lorenzo, I probably should have tweeted out a picture of his too, but there's flowers and stuff down by his, site as well. It just shows like how many people are coming. Even when I was driving out of the cemetery, the wrought iron gate that sort of lets in people on the walking trail to go in, like it's open and people are like passing off the doorway to each other. Like there's people still going in there. I would imagine that people are going to keep going back every single day. Like that's the part of this. And, the Valvano factor and the magic and everything. Like, I talked to Gustler yesterday from Players Retreat, who said that this has been the most profitable, month ever. Like they're making more money in an hour than they used to make in a week.
Look, Brandon, at the start of the podcast, I cracked open the Four Loko to
That's heinous.
You're right. It is heinous.
You don't need me on the show. You need a doctor.
I play one on TV.
But it's funny. Like ABC 11 came through and they, were like, oh, well, you're a state guy, so you got to be happy about this. I'm like, you do this long enough, that stuff kind of gets beaten out of you after a while, especially after 20 some odd years. The only thing I care about is what makes it interesting. And I've made this point several times, like, oh, you got to be happy that state's winning. Yes, I am happy that state is winning because state winning is good for business. Like I think people forget that. Like state winning and being engaged is good for everybody.
Yes, absolutely. And like I get a lot of hate, no surprise, from UNC fans and from Duke fans who say you're such a UNC homer, you're such a Duke homer. Like I don't care who wins. I root for the best story. Like I know that sounds like BS. I root for the best story and no overtime. Those are the only two things that I have a vested interest in. But for now, it's the same thing for NC State. This has been an incredible story. It has been the most fun part of this NCAA tournament. I don't think it's close. Yes, it's cool seeing UConn trying to go for a repeat. Yeah. Yes, it's cool seeing Purdue get their monkey off their back and Zach Edey in the Final Four. You cannot tell me there has been a more enjoyable, strictly from a pleasure standpoint, part of this NCAA tournament than watching what NC State is doing right now. It's incredible. I've never seen anything like it.
Now, you do spend more time on Duke because they're usually more of a national story. They have Cooper Flagg coming in. Well, give us a vibe check on the Blue Devils, though.
It's weird. It's weird right now because, and I had this conversation with, friend of the pod as well, Connor O'Neill, recently. Yeah. And he said something to the effect of like, do you think it's hard for John Shire to focus on this year's team when he's already salivating about what he can do with next year's team? And I think that for Duke fans, there was a lot of that this year. There was a lot of, okay, sure, we got these guys back. None of them have really lived up to what we thought they were going to be in their second seasons. Let's cycle it through.
But they almost did the Final Four. That's the part that did they have the kind of year in the regular season that you can point to go, yeah, man, that was a good year? Not necessarily. It had its ups and downs for a variety of reasons. There's probably some guys that, if you care about this stuff, lost money.
Different standard, man.
No, I get there's a different standard, but you're looking at like Tyrese Proctor. Didn't have the kind of year that he wanted for a variety of reasons. Kyle Filipowski in that game against DJ Burns, like you're literally watching somebody's draft stock drop in the way that he played in that game, and DJ Burns just kept taking it to him, right? But they were still a half away from making the Final Four, which would have been a hell of a thing for John Shire to do in his second year at Duke, winning an ACC championship the first year and getting the Final Four the next year. And yet it's almost like, Cooper Flagg. I hate that, man. I hate that for Duke.
I will say Cooper is a special player. And he's again, I haven't been doing this that long, but he's the best high school player I've ever seen. He's better than Zion was in high school. He's better than Paolo was in high school. He's better than Ja was in it. He's better than Brandon Ingram was in high school. And it's not close. Like he's a freak. Every time he's on the floor, he's the best player on the floor. And he starts on the team with 4 other 5-stars, McDonald's All-Americans, whatever you want to say. But like here's the way I think I have settled on. I don't think this Duke season was a failure. 2 years in, John Shire's made an ACC. He's got an ACC tournament title and he's got an Elite Eight appearance. That's awesome. He's going to send multiple guys to the draft again. That's awesome. None of this is bad. Even by the Duke standard, it's not bad. I do still think you can say this season was underwhelming from the Duke perspective.
Okay.
Because they were a preseason number 1, number 2 team. Mm-hmm. They brought back potentially an entire starting lineup worth of draftable players. Mm-hmm. They say Jeremy Roach is probably the lone exception there, and he didn't even, had some injuries. There were games where they were starting Foster and whoever. And you don't win the ACC regular season. You don't win the ACC tournament. You don't make the Final Four. And so for Duke fans to come up fully empty on that, I think the expectations part of it does make it a little bit underwhelming. But then you've got, I told you this in DC, I think. I had one NBA scout tell me that Flagg and Malwalk, the Sudanese center they got, they're going to be the most heavily scouted pair of college teammates since Embiid and Wiggins in 2014, more than Zion and RJ. So when you have that in the rearview mirror, quickly catching up on you, I think that also plays a role.
But their roster is such, as JC Zembel was explaining to me, they're not going to be able to portal and add older players to go with them.
They've got a lot of guys coming in.
They got a lot of guys.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, honestly.
That's a mistake. I think that's a mistake.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, I think what happened to North Carolina last season when they could only work around the margins and you got one lottery ticket and it was Pete Nance and that ticket did not cash.
No.
You're like, okay, this is not great. And like Duke has had, I would say, relative success in the portal. You know, Theo John was a piece of that Final Four team, probably played the role he was brought in to do.
Mhm.
Brian Young has been a piece for 2 years, has played something of a role. But like they haven't hit that slam dunk in the portal yet, and not having exactly. And so you want to have more room around the margins. The roster movement at Duke this year is going to be more fascinating to me than it was at North Carolina last year.
They need to do what Hubert did last year and tell those guys you're just not going to play.
You're just not playing.
You need to leave.
And if you want to go somewhere else, go somewhere else.
We'll help you.
Yeah.
But they need to add somebody old.
They do.
Roach can come back.
Roach can come back for another year. Ryan Young's done. And you know, I expect they're going to lose Filipowski and McCain to the draft.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think, you know, I think there will probably be options for Tyrese Proctor, even if it's not professionally here, maybe somewhere else.
I think he'll still be a first round pick.
There will you know, those transfer, those, I'll say that freshman class that did not get the run that I think a lot of people thought it was going to this year, the portal beckons.
I would wish them all well.
Yeah.
In future endeavors.
Yeah.
To be callous. I mean, you have it like he's got a chance next year, to your point. And now that I'm sober, I can clean up some of my language. If you're a Duke fan,
I am not.
If you're a Duke fan and you've now had to sit through losing to Carolina in the Final Four and NC State in the Elite Eight, do you really think like I like to bang on NC State about, man, you guys keep bringing up 83. That was a really long time ago. Do you know who actually remembers 83? Not a lot of people.
Yeah.
Duke, 2015, believe it or not, for these people.
It was a long time ago.
For these youths, you might as well be talking about 83.
Yeah.
You might as well be talking about 74. That's not fair to what Mike Krzyzewski did, but it's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm a Duke fan and I'm looking at this and I'm going, hold up now. It's one thing to lose to Kansas. It's one thing to lose to Connecticut. State?
Right.
State?
Yes. It was so funny. I watched the NC State the Duke Houston game with some UNC people out in Los Angeles, and the knots that they were in trying to figure out if they would rather have had Duke or NC State advance to the Final Four. And I couldn't believe it. I would say the majority of them, maybe 7 out of 10 people, said they would rather have had Duke win that game because they did not want NC State to have a taste. And now NC State has a taste. And like you said, to your point, Duke is in an interesting spot.
But my point about next year is you can wipe all of that away if you put the machine together and you run through people. Like, I don't think they're 99. They're going to be 99 good.
Yeah,
I say 99.
I was going to say, but what
99.
What did 99 do?
But they didn't win it.
Right.
I don't think they'll be that machine level.
Yeah.
But they're going to have that type of ability next season.
Well,
if I think they add a little bit of if you bring Roach back, cool. But they got to get someone else who can make a shot too.
All right, Brendan, before we get out of here, RJ Davis done, or is he coming back for another year at UNC?
What's he got to gain by coming back?
Thank you.
Interesting.
Thank you.
I would say probably $1 million, but
he does. But at that point, you know, it's $1 million now. But I mean, for him right now, if he listen, the NBA odds are awful for him just because of the size. If he had Caleb Love's body, he'd be a first round pick.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think he will be drafted. He's going to get an opportunity. He'll be on a summer league. He'll be on a two-way somewhere. He'll try and be Cam Thomas. Can he? I don't know. But if you come back, all you do is risk sinking yourself to a point where you don't even get that opportunity. You're another year older. Maybe you get injured. The one thing that I do think is interesting with RJ is, like you said, there's $1 million probably waiting in North Carolina. If he wanted to, there might be more money out there elsewhere.
Somewhere else.
And that's the thing that I think is going to start being fascinating with some of these 4-year legendary guys. He's like the Joe Girard situation last year on steroids.
Hey, look, if Carolina fans can accept Caleb Love going to Arizona and still be, hey man, Tar Heel for life, I think most people will be the same thing with RJ Davis.
I think Arizona was like a safe space.
maybe
Because in my head, when he says somewhere else, I think Kentucky or Kansas. I don't think Carolina would suffer that.
And here's the other thing that I think is being underrated in the RJ Davis conversation. He had a group of dudes at UNC.
Sure.
And including guys that came over, like Cormac Ryan's in his grouping, right? Harrison Ingram's in his grouping. And I've seen this at Carolina before, and I guess this comes with age. You've seen Carolina groups of older players and the next crop not get along.
I see Marcus Ginyard downtown every now and then.
Yep.
Yeah.
Marcus Ginyard is the first guy I think about where there was just not a meshing of the new group that was coming up that included guys like John Henson and the older group that was tied to a different time.
Sure.
And what they're trying to do. And I'm not saying that's exactly what's going to happen to RJ, but sometimes you see the new group coming in and be like, man, these ain't my guys. You're all some new dudes. I'm not this. So I'm going to move on to something else. So that's why I don't see RJ Davis coming back. Now, if he comes back, cool. But I just don't see it. And I'm with you, Brendan. I don't see what he gains.
I can't let Brendan leave before I make this point because you have more access to your UNC friends than I do.
Oh, yes.
If you would like to see their brains explode.
More than they already have.
More than they already have. No, for real. The NC State right now is playing with a post and a second big who plays out on the wing, and NC State's rebounding like crazy. They have a lead guard who's making some amazing shots. Might be a little bit undersized. You might even call him a tough little nut if you really wanted to. Who does that remind you of?
It's incredible. It's incredible. Listen,
NC State has completely taken Roy's steez and gotten to the Final Four by beating Duke.
Yeah, and I think, I'll say this:
Carolina championship.
I think NC State and DJ Burns are about as tough a matchup as you could ask for if you're Zach Edey. And I cannot wait for it. Because if DJ Burns can keep Zach Edey from catching the ball 5 feet away from the hoop, this is going to be a ball game.
It's helpful.
And you never know.
Brendan Marks, The Athletic, go read his stuff. It's great. And yes, State fans, he will write about NC State. Here it is. All right, Brendan, appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you later.
I appreciate you guys. I'll see you in Phoenix.
You'll see Joe. You will not see me.
I'll take 50% of the operation.
All right. All right. We'll talk to you later.
See y'all.
Joe, my arms are sore thanks to the Scott's Real moment. Very sore.
We need a video of this, by the way. We got to turn this into some summer content.
Come over to the house when you're back from Phoenix, and you can get me with my real mower as I'm pushing that thing around. The point is that I'm getting the yard ready. It's about that time, and you got to make sure that you're not getting bitten up while you're hanging out in the backyard. That's where Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority come into play. Go to bugsbite.com. You can bundle and save with our friends over at Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority. Speaking of saving, you want to save money on your home and auto, and that's where Matt Davis, InsureGarner.com, VOGinsurance.com at State Farm can help. You can actually just call them directly at 919-779-8277, or if you're watching on YouTube, Joe's put up the QR code. Just hit pause on the YouTube, put your phone up to that, and blammo, you are there saving money.
Yeah,
Matt Davis.
Matt was checking in yesterday, and I was like, he's like, yeah, we got the Trojan Club golf tournament. I was like, oh man, it's our birthday.
Mm-hmm.
He's always on the lookout, man.
He is.
You should be on the lookout on how to save money for you. All of your insurance needs, 919-779-8277.
We'll get out of here on some Hey Joe questions. I did tweet out the For Loko at the beginning of the recording, and I just said, good morning with the For Loko. And from Cam, who covers Wake Forest, didn't go with the gold one, didn't know you were soft.
Oh,
hey, Cam. This is an OG version, all right? This is an OG version. Shout out to Brendan. I haven't talked to Brendan in a while. I've never respected you more. Meddling with Joe from John, thoughts and prayers for your liver. Actually, all of your internal organs. Candace, shout out to Locked On ACC. Joe, please. Candace, you know better. You know I'm about that life. LK, the gastroenterologist
near Raleigh. Yeah.
Dylan apparently made this mistake a couple weeks ago with the For Loko Gold. I've not seen the For Loko Gold. Again, this is like a straight up old school one. From Flair, you got to do Everclear shots of state wins. Why not? I haven't had that in a while. Apparently, John still has one back in his cellar, back in the fridge with the caffeine. That's the key part. This is the one with the caffeine. From Keenan, are you okay, Joe? You guys know I'm not. You guys know I'm not.
That was foul.
From Price Boy.
You want to get nuts?
Let's get nuts. From Justin. Oh, hell nah, definitely not. Definitely not.
Let's podcast.
Yeah,
yes.
it's not even 9 a.m. You're right. It is not. It is
that's
not.
a pick me up and a whatever.
Whew. I'll tell you what,
something.
I do not need to get more coffee after this. And of course, from Bluest Deuce, tweets from the afterlife. Yeah, indeed.
I love that it was next to the brass monkey and no one even blinked. There's not even like, oh yeah, you too.
I'm about halfway through this thing.
Can you see the color?
I can't finish it. I cannot finish
The
it.
smell is so bad.
Goodness gracious. All right, to the YouTube comments from Marcel. Feels like 24 is an absolute incredible slogan. Joe,
Thank you.
You do
Thank
have,
you.
You do have good ideas.
Thank you.
You were told once you don't have any good ideas, but
Amazing.
you've had several good ideas this entire NCAA tournament run. Who knew? From Rob, it's funny that all the Final Four teams are east of the Mississippi and the games are played west of the Mississippi. Yeah, I was actually talking about this with Kelly. If the Final Four was in Atlanta or something like that, oh, we would have gone. We all would have gone.
Yeah.
We all would have gone. We would have driven down there. We'd have made something work. I would have called up some old favors. Heck, I would probably talk to my brewery friends about where can we go do. Hey, I think we know somebody nearby at Sweetwater. That might have helped.
We do.
But anyway, that's another story altogether. From Zachary, sharing that 40 instantly brought me back to Chapel Hill High days, scoring a St. Ides from the Circle K.
The 40 was a bad idea. Okay.
Yeah.
The 4 Loko was a terrible idea, but the 40 at that point of the day was a bad idea.
You know, I don't.
As Ken likes to tell me, shorties don't count, but 40s do.
Is it bad that I forgot that we talked to Nice?
No.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
No, you're
What's the code for breaking tea? We do not have a code for breaking tea. It's
No,
the
we don't.
referral code. We basically get a cut from the sales. That's how our arrangement works with breaking tea.
Already got a Feels Like 24 hoodie. Good call.
Got the hoodie, all that kind of stuff. Time for the 4 Locos. Yes, Kyle, we did that. And we'll spend some more time talking about this later in the week. And from Brand, UConn is not a blue blood. You can't miss half the tournaments in the same time. You're winning the crapshoot and call yourself a blue blood. Duke makes the second weekend more often than UConn makes to the first weekend. Historically, UConn's winning percentage is closer to NC State or Utah than UNC or Kentucky. They're the nouveau riche of college hoops. That's the equivalent of some Silicon Valley startup IPO millionaire trying to pretend that they're in the same league with the Rockefellers or the Morgans. They're just not. And the insecure protest every time you point it out just reinforces that point. The conversation about the blue blood, I agree. There is a difference between the two, but it does come down to one central question that is worth debating. Would you rather?
Who would you rather be?
What would you rather do?
I'd rather be UConn every time.
There you go. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. We will see you Wednesday. Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Maybe.
Paddles.
I'm fine.